Here.
Here. Here.
Here.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we grant Ms. Halsted permission to participate electronically.
Second.
Okay, motion by Ms. Randall, second by Dr. Warner. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries unanimously. Is Ms. Halsted with us?
I am here. I'm going to mute you out so you don't have the background noise, though. So let me know when you need me to speak.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
Oh,
And
that's
thank
good.
you for letting me do this.
We're glad you're with us. All right, welcome to Brook Point High School. The school board very much appreciates this opportunity to meet with the Board of Supervisors today to discuss Stafford County Public Schools Capital Improvement Plan. We also want to thank you for your support of funding our #1 CIP priority, High School number 6. As our time today is limited to a little over an hour, the school board plans to take about half of that time and leave the remainder of time for the Board of Supervisors' presentations, questions, and/or comments. To that end, we ask that you hold your questions or comments until we have finished our presentation, which will permit us to maximize our limited time and to stay on track. The school board will focus our discussion on the 2 capital projects that we unanimously identified in September 2022 as our second and third CIP priorities after our first priority, High School number 6. Those second and third priorities being Elementary School 18 and Elementary School 19. Before we begin our discussion, we would like to note for the record that the school board's next 3 priorities after construction of Elementary School 18 and Elementary School 19 are rebuilds of Hartwood Elementary, Drew Middle School, and the Gary Melchers Rising Star Preschool, which we would like to discuss at a future meeting when we have adequate time to address them. Our boards have talked and corresponded individually and jointly many times in the past about the explosive growth in Stafford County Public Schools student population and our challenges to meet the space demands placed on us by the addition of new students. Because our focus today is on the immediate and dire need for Elementary School 18 and 19, we will first briefly review the change in our elementary school student population since Anthony Burns, our last new elementary school, opened in 2006, and our projected elementary school increase over the next 10 years. In 2006, Stafford County Public School had 11,174 elementary students enrolled. As of September 30, 2022, we had 12,992 elementary students enrolled, an increase of 1,818 elementary school students from 2006 when Anthony Burns opened. Our projection for elementary school enrollment in 2026 is 13,759, an increase of 767 students from today. Our projection for elementary school enrollment in 2031 is 15,586 students, an increase of 2,504 students from today. We have 2 slides that demonstrate graphically the impact of the projected additional students in 2026 and 2031 will have on our existing elementary schools, and these slides are here. Remember, red is over the capacity. These elementary school enrollment projections made by Mr. Lionel White, whose projected student enrollments for this year was 99.98% accurate, show the dramatic increase in elementary school students we anticipate. We currently have 2 trailers with 4 classrooms at Rocky Run Elementary School and 2 trailers with 4 classrooms at Conway Elementary School because of the lack of elementary school seats available in the southern part of the county. When Elementary School 18 is open, it is our expectations that the trailers at Rocky Run and Conway will no longer be necessary. In addition to relieving overcrowding at Rocky Run and Conway, we anticipate that Elementary School 18 will relieve overcrowding at Hartwood, Falmouth, Grafton Village, and potentially Ferry Farm and Margaret Brent. We further anticipate that when Elementary School 19 opens, it will relieve overcrowding at Stafford Elementary, Anthony Burns, Hampton Oaks, Winding Creek, Grafton Village, and potentially Falmouth. The relief to these schools could also potentially relieve overcrowding at Park Ridge, Garrisonville, and Moncure. Without timely opening of Elementary School 18 and 19, Stafford County Public Schools will suffer from overcrowding at nearly every elementary school in the county, with the only relief potentially available, depending on the site, from costly trailers. The school board views trailers as a last, albeit necessary, resort for many reasons, including but not limited to safety and security, the cost with limited return on investment, and the negative impact on our instructional delivery and on our school's infrastructure and ability to meet the needs of each and every student. In April 2022, the school board learned that the Board of Supervisors approved a rebuild of Hartwood Elementary School to begin in FY 2023. The Board of Supervisors made this decision unilaterally without any ranking of the rebuild by the CIP's Technical Review Committee or communication with or input from the school board. Today, we are asking that you reconsider your decision to fund a rebuild of Hartwood Elementary School in FY 23 based on the needs of the school division and the priorities identified by the school board for capital projects for our elementary schools. Please note that Elementary School 18 and Elementary School 19 will collectively add 1,968 seats to our elementary school student capacity, while the Hartwood rebuild will only add 393 seats to our elementary schools. We further ask that you replace approval of the Hartwood Elementary School rebuild with approval for funding Elementary School 18 and Elementary School 19 simultaneously to begin in FY 24 and open in August 2026. We would be happy to discuss funding alternatives for Elementary School 18 and Elementary School 19 in a future forum. Now, I would like to give each of our school board members the opportunity to present their personal perspective on the identification of Elementary School 18 and Elementary School 19 as the school board's CIP top 2 priorities after High School 6, and the need to move forward expeditiously and without further delay on funding and construction of Elementary School 18 and Elementary School 19. And I want to ask Dr. Warner if you could start us off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I would like to thank the Board of Supervisors for being here tonight and give us this opportunity to discuss our CIP needs. I want to thank them for working with us on High School 6. When Ms. Randall and I came on the board, that was one of the first things that we began voting on. And it's been 3 years, and we can finally say we're getting close to the point where we may be able to see that high school in my lifetime, because we're now talking about the financial part of it. Always a sure sign that the school will be built. But one thing that concerns me is the decision to put Hartwood rebuild above the other Elementary School 18 and 19. Elementary School 18 has actually been on our capital improvement project since I came on the board. The real issue is, as we discussed, Ms. Guy and I held a CIP town hall where we had the opportunity to meet with local residents, and there's tremendous frustration in the fact that we have not been more aggressive in building schools. One of the things that I noted during those meetings is that we need 3 schools yesterday. The high school is one of them, Elementary School 18 and Elementary School 19, because the bottom line is what we need is capacity. We need seats for students. The alternatives to school construction mean that we have to increase spending on trailers, and with those trailers comes additional burdens for lighting, fencing, security cameras, and it actually poses somewhat of a safety risk when you consider that those trailers don't have the same hard infrastructure for security that we do in our school buildings. The other part of this is that with the added portable units, we don't have any additional capacity in our libraries, in our cafeteria, in our gymnasiums. So we aren't able to meet the resources that we need for any given school. I think it's important that the Board of Supervisors works with us in developing land and land acquisition and school construction needs that actually meet the needs of our community and not political whims. It's really critical that we get the capacity that we need to provide the resources that we do for our students and for our community. Schools are part of a community that everybody looks for when they're moving somewhere. They want good schools. And we are losing grip on that if we don't start building the capacity that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Warner. Dr. Chase?
Hi. I would also like to thank the Board of Supervisors for coming tonight, and I guess I have spoken to a number of supervisors offline. I don't know quite how our two boards kind of seem to have gotten out of sync on this question of a new elementary school versus a new Heartwood, but we sort of did, and I hope that we can correct that moving forward. I guess I'm just feeling really frustrated that we're all having trouble communicating and staying on message. I feel that's very clear that our number one priority should be the education of our students, and that requires classrooms. And when we're spending, $2+ million on turf fields rather than on classrooms or on acquiring land for elementary schools, I have to think there must be money for the other. If there was money for the one, then there should be money for the other. And so I also just wanted to say that I think the charts that were put up there are probably a little optimistic because they don't take into consideration the growing number of early childhood special education students that we're going to have, and we'll need additional seats for those children as well. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. Ms. Guy?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay. All right. Thank you, and I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for being here, especially my counterpart and the students who were kind enough to be serving us and provided us our meal. I am new to being on the board, and so this is a new process for me, and I too would genuinely welcome the understanding of how it got flipped. I truly don't understand. I am trying to follow it, and I'm not pointing blame. I don't get it. But I just want to take my time to say how important it is that we have space. I was volunteering in one of the elementary schools yesterday, and I was in the library, and the kids enjoy being in the library, and they had a few minutes to just play and was playing an educational game, but they were still playing, and we kept having to say, be quiet, because now we have a classroom in the library, because there's no space, because the school is overcrowded. That's just one school, and that's absolutely insane that we have bookshelves as being a classroom. I mean, I don't understand it, and as a parent, I'm incredibly worried for the future of our students. If we don't put a value on their education, I'm not sure what's going to happen. We desperately need elementary school 18 and 19 immediately after our next high school. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guy. Ms. Sigmund?
I agree with Ms. Guy. I think my kids are slacking if this is what high schoolers can do. I hope my daughter is watching and taking notes because I expect this from her in a couple of years. I kind of do recognize what our supervisors intended to do. I know that in trying to give us a Heartwood rebuild, they are trying to add us seats in the south where they are very desperately needed, as well as, we need them in the north as well. But when we hear Heartwood rebuild, we hear 400 seats and not 800 or 900, which is what we need. We then that would not alleviate our need for spending money on trailers. We need to keep Heartwood open. We need to have elementary school 18. We need to have elementary school 19 as well. For those of you not familiar with the compression in the north, We have kids, I mean, you look at Stafford L, it's going to be at over 200 seats over. Anthony Burns is 80% students from that, we're busing across 95. About what, 50% of Hampton Oaks comes from across 95. For any of you that drive, you know that crossing 95 with a school bus full of kids is not the commute you want your kids to have. But we don't have the school space on that side of the highway. So that is one of the reasons we have that on our wish list as well, in addition to where we already have trailers. We have nowhere to put our kids. Not building schools doesn't mean they're not coming, does not mean we can turn them away. We are required by law to educate every student that is in Stafford County. And if that means we have to put trailers, that means we're busing more students to fewer spaces. And that's why we have an hour in between our start schedules. People don't like the hour in between. I get it. I've got kids in 3 different sessions. I feel like I'm always driving, and by the time I get my middle schooler to school, I have a minute to sit down before I have to go pick up my high schooler. I'm all day with my kids back and forth, and I know a lot of families are dealing with the same thing. But when we literally cannot get buses, even if you gave us all the money in the world to buy them, they take forever to get here. It's hard to get even trailers here on time for the start of school once we figure out complete our budget process. So we need to really just take that money and invest in infrastructure, in schools, in creating learning environments that are not going to depreciate. And we need to do it quickly because the kids they just keep coming. And it's a beautiful sight, but we want to give them the most awesome place to learn.
Thank you, Ms. Sigmund. Ms. Randall?
I also would like to echo the sentiments of welcoming everybody. I'm thankful that you guys were able to come. Thank you, the Brook Point Culinary Arts, for our delicious dinner. I would also like to say that one of the things that I feel Mr. White's maps that he had put up for us really show is exactly where our growth is and exactly where we need our schools. And I think we need to pay close attention to where our needs are so that we can make sure we put schools where our students are. And the other thing that I would like to echo is the use of trailers. We had them at Ferry Farm during the renovation, which is still ongoing. And the situation sometimes with the trailers, yes, there's a safety, but you also have your lockdown drills, your fire drills, your tornado drills, and then sometimes when they're not drills, that it becomes an issue for those students out there. The bathrooms, having them coming in and using a bathroom that's already being utilized by a few grades and having to logistically schedule potty time. It can be a lot on an elementary school schedule. One of the things that we would like to make sure, and we have, as a board, decided it's a high priority, is to make sure that we have dedicated music, art, library, STEAM, and teacher work rooms at every elementary school for every child to make sure they have the full educational experience, not on a cart, in a classroom. And that takes more space as well. We would like to make sure that elementary school 18, elementary school 19 are considered unanimously by our board as a top priority, and we hope that in further discussion with your board that it will become your top priority as well. Thank you.
Ms. Halsted?
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent.
Mr. English is laughing. He said, yeah.
Have you ever had that problem,
So I definitely echo my thanks and appreciation to the supervisors for meeting with us. I also think it's worth noting that I don't envy that you have to do this and make these decisions and see and pay so much, detailed attention and try and balance all of these intricacies at once. So let's go to the Heartwood replacement number 1. I think we're all clear on the fact that I dug my heels in the deepest and the hardest on this when the other board members were trying to talk me through the situation and scenario for 18 and 19. And at this point to me, not that it's semantics, but the key thing that really stood out is if we do the Heartwood replacement as we are technically identifying it, and we shut that school down, where we just shot ourselves in the foot in the biggest possible way. We don't have enough buildings to have that building closed at all. And it's not ideal. Why? It's not a safe school per se. It needs a lot of work. However, I do believe decompressing that building and the pressure of the number of students we have on it will help alleviate some of that wear and tear and give us the opportunity to keep it functional for the next few years. Outside of that, yes, it's bursting at the seam. But if we're talking safety and security of our kids, right now, I guarantee you, if we did a full-on study of our schoolrooms and classes, overcrowding at schools, number one cause of many of these issues, of fights, of any of the things that you can think of. We have too many kids in these classes for the teachers to be productive sometimes. And I'll say this much. I've been in the urban planning piece. I was in it for a long time. There's no easy solution to manage, I think, to manage growth that got so far beyond you, you have to now figure out how to catch up to it. You're supposed to be in front of it. We're not there in Stafford County. But if you take a look at the Heartwood building, the Rocky Run Elementary School, and then you go over to a brand new school like Moncur, and you see the different learning environments that our kids are in, it's stunning. It's seriously stunning to see the disparity just in those environments. So for me, the issue has to be, I represent Heartwood, but I represent Stafford County. And if we're going to write a $58 million check, I do think that the taxpayers deserve many more seats and the availability of those seats for that money. We haven't given them much before. This is the olive branch they've asked for. Build us our schools and help us to do this. Even the Heartwood Elementary moms understand that if we get an 18 and we can decompress Heartwood Elementary, then by the time we're looking at Westlake and Elementary School 20, we may be in a better place. But I don't think any of us can disagree, and I'm sure that every point we've made tonight, you've all said, yes, we do know that. But understand tonight that it's so important to show everyone, including the kids, that we're catching up. We're playing, like we're running a marathon, we're behind, but we are catching up, and we're doing that by realizing that we got to start pulling these kids out of these schoolrooms to make the learning environment better for them. And as a final note on this, I am happy to, also meet independently. If anybody has any questions about what's left in my head and what really made me turn the corner on elementary school 18 and 19. But when I look at this list of school buildings and I find myself being frustrated by the fact that we didn't do it this way, I am reminded that you build a county around its schools, not the other way around. Because people come based on the school's rating and based on the education their kids are going to get. And I think that has to be our focus moving forward. So that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Halstead. I see by my clock that we have about 6 minutes left in our half hour. So I want to ask Dr. Taylor if he could address some of the funding economies that we as a county could have if we were to build elementary school 18 and 19 simultaneously.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members of the Board of Supervisors, for joining us this evening. It's been a real pleasure getting to work with Mr. Vosberg and his team. Your partnership has meant a lot, and we really do see this opportunity as just that, an opportunity. I don't think it's in dispute that there are new schools that are needed to alleviate growth and that there are schools that need to be rebuilt. The question at hand is how and when and under what circumstances. And there's a lot of worthy projects. to be considered. We see this as an opportunity because not only do we need 2 schools worth of capacity immediately, but that there are some economies that come from building and scoping out projects in quick succession or simultaneously. When you design a prototype design that can be replicated, there is an immediate cost savings. And when you bid construction projects that are of the same design in different locations, and you sequence them in a way, you can capitalize on some reduced labor costs and reduced scheduling fees from different contractors. So much so that it can be between 1% and 5% of the total cost of the project, and a large sum of contingency funds as well. Well, if you're doing the math in your head over 2 projects, 1 to 5% is in the millions of dollars. That's between $1 to $5 million that you could have in just project savings. Well, the good news with that is that you have some smaller projects that you could even scratch off your list from project savings. So we do see that there is an opportunity here for us to take advantage of this and also to meet a community need. I don't think that any of the 23-ish, 22-ish people sitting around this table today is very concerned about how we got here or the history behind it as much as we are what we are going to do moving forward. Because whatever problems were created in the past, we're the ones that have to solve them now. And so as we are trying to address this, it's about looking forward and about what we can do from this point moving on, not what has happened in the past. So with that, we offered this great opportunity to meet your community's needs with High School 6, Elementary School 18, and Elementary School 19.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. So, Madam Chairman, we're finished our presentation now, and we're open for any questions or comments that you have, or if you want to make a presentation, however you want to handle it.
Very good. Thank you so much. First and foremost, thank you guys for having us over here at my alma mater, Brook Point. And I think I don't know where the kids are that made our food, but I would love it if they came out so we could just give you guys a round of applause. That was awesome. Thank you so much. It was a very special treat. I don't think we have a presentation to prepare. We were really here to listen to what your needs were. I think I can speak for the board when I say, you know, since 2018, our board has made leaps and bounds in adjustments to funding the schools, whether it be salary pay, bus driver raises to the tune of 22% last year outside the budget cycle, or moving up schools on the CIP. So I think our board is definitely committed to education and making sure that Stafford County is a great place to live, work, and raise a family. As you can imagine, we have a lot of balancing needs that are on our end of the street as well. So I think what we really look forward to is a good working relationship and making sure that we're communicating and that there are no games being played on either side of the street, and that we are having open communication and working on this together, because that's the way that the community wins. So I'll open it up with that comment, and then I will defer to my colleagues if anybody wants to speak first.
I guess I will, because
Go
I think
ahead, Mr.
I think
English.
Heartwood's been the I think it's been the topic.
Who'd
of
you
this.
make mad?
I don't know. What I have to say is, well, one thing, I've been with the sheriff's office for 42 years, and I remember when 9/11 hit. One of the major things that we was concerned of, that we got through some that we were concerned about, was they were threatening to poison the wells and different stuff like that. Of course, you know, Heartwood Elementary School was the only school in our area that's on a well. So we were taking, it was a 24-hour circle around trying to keep Heartwood safe. And I feel like we as a community, we owe that to the community up at Heartwood, that we build them a new school. We can add some 400, maybe 400 more students to that. That school is in sad shape. I know it's over 40 years old, because I've been, like I said, I've been here all my life, and I'm 60, so I know it's been here that long. And I don't think anything's ever been to that school, done to that school. It's something you really got to think about, the way the water system has been going on. We got an email from one of our Crystal's constituents that a lake bed had dried up right there in the Mountain View area. My concern is, do you have a plan if that well goes dry? What happens if the well goes dry up in Heartwood? What's your contingency plan on that one? I am not backing down on Hartwood Elementary School. That needs to be the second one built in in that community. You can shake your head all you want. I'm just telling you, that school needs to be built, and we owe that to the citizens. This is one of the richest counties in Virginia, and we've got a school that's on well and septic. Really? So I am not backing down. I think Hartwood Elementary School should be the second one built, and then build your next elementary school. That's how I stand on that, and I don't know what my colleagues feel like, but I think, again, we owe that to the residents of Hartwood.
Supervisor Young, and then Gary, and then Allen. Got to be quick. All right,
Yeah.
Supervisor Young.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us here. Yes, I second the motion that the food was delicious. Thank you very much, students. I don't have any students at home, so you all could come over anytime. Feel free.
Don't do that.
They're too young. But yeah, thank you very much. I know that, I did not know, Supervisor English, that you look great, to be honest with you, for that age, I tell you. No, I don't think so. But so I stick to my point. I probably was the only one that voted against even the high school and Hartwood, sorry. Not because I don't believe that Hartwood is needed. Being on the school board, we put a lot of work into Hartwood and into the well. And yes, you could poison any water. You could poison a well, but you could poison any water system also. But not to say that Hartwood is not needed. It's been there for 50. I know a couple of schools that are even older. You got Drew and North Stafford. I think we need many, many schools. But for right now, the school board is asking, is begging, and has been begging even when I was on the board, that with their autonomy, that they need two elementary school. And it's for a reason. It's not about popularity. It's not about politics. It's not about, yeah, the constituents. Every constituents need that. And when you talk about the individuals on the other side of 95, that area is Stafford. Every single child deserves an education, and doesn't matter where they live. Look at Moncure. I know school board member Guy probably remembers when I fought for the area where those boys and girls live, that they could walk to school, because I thought it was very, very important. I am so committed right now also to the fact that they need two elementary schools, and that is the reason that we're here today, to work together to ensure that these kids, because the number is going to go up, and Mr. White, love the numbers, because you're always on point. Don't try to walk up to me and don't address yourself who you are, and then boo, it's me, Mr. White. But anyway, numbers are great. You have the right numbers. So we know that the numbers are going to go up, and that we need more than 400 seats. And Ms. Alstad said it right. This is her area. She knows it best. She knows that she could run and say Hartwood, but she knows that if she gets another elementary school and a second elementary school, that it will decrease the compression in Hartwood, and also for Ms. Alstad, also for Ms. Sigmund, and that these kids will have a seat in the future. So I'm all for the two elementary schools. I'm also for Drew. I'm also for the wing of North Stafford. Thank you.
All right, Supervisor Gary, you were next.
When I moved here, it must have been 8 years ago or so, from Northern Virginia. I did not bring the traffic, sorry. I'm actually from Springfield, and I grew up in Fairfax County Public Schools, and they were excellent. I had an excellent education. I had excellent access to certain services, especially our family did not have certain means, and so I didn't suffer because of that, because we had what we needed. And not to compare the two, but back then, not too much, but back then, Springfield was going through kind of what Stafford County is now. And I think that they kind of navigated that growth better from what I saw over the years. Pardon me. That pasta kind of got me. It was very good, by the way. Thank you.
Was it the pasta? No.
It was the pasta, yes. Also, my children do cook, so
I'll have to bring some next time. They make cheesecakes for the board sometimes. And
Don't give away our secrets, Monica.
anyway, thank you. What I'm trying to get to is that I know that we can be doing better. I want to see us doing better. The projections are dismal. I mean, we've all seen them. And because of this, have been having regular conversations with the community in all of the smaller meetings that I attend. There it is, thank you. And having realistic conversations about what our tax rates are going to look like. I mean, we just have to have this conversation. And what I keep hearing from the community is across the political spectrum, no one wants to pay more taxes, especially right now, but we need to for certain things, and we understand that, I think for the most part, people understand and have expressed this to me. Fiscal responsibility requires investment. It's not just not spending money. So I could put my money under a mattress, but if my money doesn't make money and doesn't result in anything, then I'm wasting it, right? Especially with inflation the way it is these days. So I believe that we need to invest in our schools. I personally would like to see, with the additional needs that are coming forward, looking at some things that we're going to put to bond referendum and working them into the budget this coming year. If you disagree with me, that's fine. Don't lose your mind right now, but that's my preference. I think that we need to just get a push forward to get to a healthier place and then start working some of those other things in. My children go to this school. I've had one child graduate from here, another is a senior this year. And I have 3 children in the middle school and 1 child in the elementary school, Stafford Middle. So Stafford Middle and Stafford Elementary. And our beloved music teacher is pulling stuff around on a cart. Doesn't sound like a big deal, but I've seen my children come home and benefit as little human beings from being with this music teacher in his class, and the time that he takes and how he cares and the events that they put on and the things that he teaches. And they're losing out on a lot of that. There are a few teachers in my life that made a big difference, and they made a big difference. I still talk to them today. So all that to say, we do value our teachers. I think I could speak for all of us. We do value our teachers. We do value our educators, including the one on our board. But I think that we need to back that up and put our money where our mouth is. The only reason I was hesitant last year in how we were navigating the funding, I thought we were going into a really bad recession, to be honest, and I didn't want to put us in a position where we were hiking up taxes on people too much. So we did have sort of an increase to get to some needs. But I think that that's going to level out. So we have been trying to be very cautious and wise with the resources that we do have. I think we can do more this year. I think that we should do more. I think that we can do more. I want to thank all of you, especially my counterpart here, for the conversations that we've been able to have. I'm really blessed. We have a good relationship and a really good relationship. We can argue on the phone and like get through it and come back, and like it's very productive. It's good. It's challenging.
She yelled at me. Like,
I did not yell.
She yells at me all the time.
Stop. Turn off her.
It's the Lord.
I don't yell,
It's
but
the
if
Lord.
I do,
Jesus
on
was yelling at
occasion,
me.
I apologize because I'm accountable. I really love you all. I love the work that we get to do. I don't want to be in a county where we say we are the richest county, but we don't take care of our children. That's a huge problem. That doesn't matter. I don't want money. I want my children to be cared for. That's it.
Okay, Supervisor Allen. So I have to write it down.
I know, I did too.
After 20 minutes, I forget.
I know, wow. First of all, I'm going to echo my colleagues and say thank you so much for your hospitality, Blackhawks, and to the school board. I really enjoyed my meal. You know, in the words of Whitney Houston, our children are the future. I just have to get that out.
gosh.
You know
Don't
what I
say
mean?
it. Don't say it.
For some comedic relief, but in all seriousness, I'm going to both, I'll use the word again, pontificate a little bit and ask some pertinent questions. So I'll start with my soliloquy. And I guess this meeting is emblematic of what's happening in Stafford County, in that the rubber has met the road, right? In that our growth has gone unchecked for, I would argue, for at least almost 20 years. And now we're at the precipice where we have massive needs: transportation, schools, and even budgetary needs within the county itself. And unfortunately, there's only one pie, right? And that is the most difficult decision that we have to make. And I think when it comes to decisions such as this, as much as we want to make it personal, and I completely understand what you're saying, Mr. English, just so don't think I'm negating that. And as much as we have personal relationships to some of these issues, I think I would, implore both boards to look at this holistically and not as individual districts, but what really is in the benefit of Stafford County. And so for me, it's okay, we have one pie to divvy up with many pressing needs where we're bursting at the seams. Today we were talking in stroke class about a patient who lost his skull, and his brain was literally leaking because of the compression he was facing, and literally the ICU nurse had pieces of brain matter in her hands. And I kind of feel like
that's fun.
I kind of feel like that's Stafford County, right? Like we're having pieces of the county in our hands that we're having to play hot potato with. And so I don't like this catch-all, do-all kind of mentality that we have as boards. I think we need to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. And when I say that, I mean, okay, there's one pie and we all have needs, but I would like to defer in some cases to the expertise of my colleagues, right? I wasn't elected to serve on the school board, and I would think that the board and their staff have done tremendous amount of work over the years to get us to the point where they feel that they have the most informed information, right? Because I would say the counterpart is they don't really do our jobs for us. And so when it comes to expertise, for me, that matters a little bit. I'm not saying that, we can sit here and argue that some of the lists might be, extra, and that's debatable, but they're core important topics and issues that the school board has identified. And I think we need to defer to that expertise as it relates to what is best. I mean, I have never seen 7 board members agree on anything, especially when some of these issues, especially with our kids, is so personal, right? I'm pretty sure Widewater, Rock Hill, George Washington, Hartwood, and Garrison and Aquia can each have individual stories about maybe why my district needs a school or why my district needs that. But I think if we looked at this collectively, it's the best way to approach how to deal with this. So for me, it's with that one pie, how do we make sure that we're giving Dr. Tillman, we're giving the school board the correct funding to help them address it in a smart and strategic way, so that we're not wasting money and we're not chasing our tails by spending in ways that we don't need to. And when I say that, for example, and this will tie into my questions, one of my questions is, we were presented today with the new high school costing us $183 million projected now. That's $30 million to when I started in 3 years, right? That's the average of 10 years. So for me, okay, well, what is the projected cost if we were to defer 18 and 19 out in future years and did Hartwood? I don't know. I'd like to know that. And I'm hoping Mr. Towery will be able to answer those questions. Also, I'd like to know.
15 million more per school.
Okay, that's a lot. 15 million more per school. That's $30 million that we could potentially, be wasting by not maybe taking a more strategic approach. I'd like to know, how is this lack of capacity impacted curriculum? For example, we have an amazing program that we're getting ready to start in Cyber 4, right? What else could we be doing as a community to offer our students the skill set that's needed? Because the generation that's coming up after us they're not requiring the same job skills that we acquired. So what are we doing to equip them to be the best versions of themselves? Because if we're not, to me, that is the greatest failure, is that we're not putting them in a position to be effective Stafford residents. My next question would be, when Lionel showed us the projected elementary seats, does that include potential development that we haven't calculated, that hasn't been platted yet? No, that has not. I'd love to see, because I know Mr. Harvey's here, I think. Okay, well, our planning and zoning, I'd love to see for the next 7 years the projected developments that are coming down the pipeline, how those numbers now impact every one of those schools. I'd also like to know for the cost saving measurements from 18, if we were to do 18 and 19 first, how soon could we turn around and then apply that cost saving measure that Dr. Taylor talked about when he said we're basically building subdivisions for schools again to save us money? How can we then apply that to Hartwood? How soon can Hartwood then get that remodeling that it needs, so that we're not neglecting them, but we are telling our residents, like, hey, listen, we're doing 18 and 19 for compression issues, but we know Hartwood needs the attention it needs. This is just a smarter way to spend the money. I think for us too, as elected officials, we have to remember something. I think if we give our citizens the benefit of the doubt and speak to them and answer their questions and be as transparent and place stuff in front of them, especially when it comes to school, you'd be surprised of how many people will be willing to do certain things when it comes to their kids and their future. So I think going forward, for me, those are the questions that I would like to know to better inform my decision, because at the end of the day, as I said, if we're not equipping our students to be the best versions of themselves, then every one of us that's sitting up here has failed that generation.
Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. I don't have any brain stories or gushy, gross stories to tell. I'm sorry. Though I did get to see the spot where I hit my head when I was on crutches from playing donkey basketball and needed 2 stitches. So, in that vein, it's great to be back at Brook Point, where I started 30 years ago. Right? Yeah. And a great thank you for the students, for the meal, the staff, and the Mr. Roberts for your leadership over here. First of all, I love it that the projections are great again. Thank you. Because I was in the midst of the time period where projections were not that accurate. We had John David Bondurant, who was off about the same percentages that you were, and it was awesome. So that when we were doing buildings and whatever, it was spot on. And then we had a different philosophy. And so that hindered where we were going and how we were doing things. It was mentioned, and I'm just going to be egotistical and say this because I'm a jerk, but the Board of Supervisors, when we were dealing with the CIP last spring, I had conversations with my compadre and with Dr. Taylor and with other board members about the needs for elementary schools. So I suggested that we take the fire and rescue items off the CIP, do a separate bond for them, and move an elementary school up so that we could address an elementary school sooner. So that's what was being referred to, is that we moved something on the CIP based on input from you all. And that's sort of what I think you wanted. It was that type of mentality. And then based on that, and I'm going to give a shout out to Supervisor Baumke for this, she raised the idea, hey, should we do a separate bond for schools so that we look at the list and see what we can do and how we can do it. And so that whole discussion came from the supervisors wanting to be helpful on this issue. And I think that got lost in the translation over the last several months. But we are very big on this. Also big on this is the idea of getting land. And that the Aberley thing, which I praised at the board meeting today, gives us 25 acres in the northeast area of the county, which the school board member and the superintendent, 2 board members, when we were at an event in April, said to me at 8 in the morning, we need a school northeast section of the county. I'm running home to take care of my disabled relative, drive by Aberley, and I was like, wait a minute. There's rumors that Germanna is leaving and not using all that land. There's 25 acres. And lo and behold, there's some land. So there are efforts by members of this board to try to do things to be helpful to address this issue. And I don't think that, quite honestly, in all this stuff, some of us are so shy we don't talk about ourselves so much. And Dr. Taylor's laughing at me. And I have bombarded Dr. Taylor way too many times and other people about doing alternative ideas. And some of the ideas he has said, this is a problem. Some of the ideas he said, hey, I have an idea how we can run with that. So I think that we have to move forward. That's the whole point. I agree. I'm not going back to the days of, where we put lockers in hallways, and Gary Snelling said, can we make the hallways larger so that when we need to have more people they can fit in the hallway, and then the school board basically told them to pound sand. We don't need to go that way. We need to go forward, and that is based on trust. Our staffs and your staffs are phenomenal. And quite honestly, at least from my humble opinion, I trust when I hear something from those gentlemen over there and our gentleman and lady over there, I feel very comfortable with it, because I don't feel we're having the disinformation and the skewing that caused so much angst in the past. So I think we are at a point where we can move forward on some of these things, but it takes some communication, and it gives give and take. It can't be all of one side gets 100% what they want. We need to understand that there are competing interests and how we are going to get there. So I think there's a desire by many members of our board to actually work and move forward. And that's where we need to do and not dwell on the past. So I'll shut up.
Ms. Bomke.
Thank you. Thank you to the Brook Point students and the teacher that helped orchestrate everything. It was delicious, and really appreciate your efforts, especially this cookie that we just got at the end. Yum.
I didn't get a cookie.
Oh, you didn't? Oh. I'll share mine.
Tom got two. Tom ate all the cookies.
Anyway, I wanted to share a couple of different things. I made some notes while everybody else was talking, and many times I like to go last. And there's a reason for that. So I want to remind everybody that I think everybody here in this room values education. Is there anybody who doesn't value education? Please raise your hand. Okay. So I think that, we need to all recognize that we're all on the same page as it relates to that. I do want to bring up just a couple of things. I want you to understand the difference between one-time money, the money that we used for the turf fields that got a tremendous amount of attraction. That was really about equity for those two schools, for North Stafford and Colonial Forge. That money was designated and set aside. It was proffer money. So it was one-time money. So the fact that many of us voted in the affirmative to do that, that had nothing to do with CIP projects, and it did not take away from anything else, because we are not allowed by state law to use that money for capital improvement programs. So we had to use that money the way it was spent. So I just want to remind everybody that's one-time money. I also just need to kind of refresh everybody's memory. We've been dealing with COVID for 2.5 years. Many people and leaders took their eye off the ball during this time period. If you remember, we were all surviving day by day. You all were under a different superintendent then. I don't even remember having a meeting like this, to be honest. So I think it's great that we're all here together. There are a lot of since I'm the president of the Virginia Association of Counties right now, I hear many stories from my colleagues throughout the state. And I can tell you there are a lot of communities that never even have a meeting like this that we're having with you, and that we typically have every year. They do not have good working relationships with their board of supervisors. So, but I also want to bring up a couple of other things. We had a committee, and Jason Towery would remember this, and it was the School Land Construction Committee, and they met, and there were no political people on it, no board of supervisors, no school board members, and then for an entire year. And I can't remember, Lionel, were you on that?
No.
Okay.
Lionel was not here.
I think she said Lionel, not Pam.
Before
Okay.
Mr. White's time with us.
Okay, all right. So there were members of the staff from the school board and the board of supervisors, and they worked an entire year trying to find land sites. Correct, Chris? You were on that committee? Okay. So, and that's how we arrived at high school number 6. What other land sites you all have, on your report? I don't know about. But we can pull that report out and we can get working on that very quickly. Our board is willing to work with you. We all care about the community, so we want to do that. But I do want to bring up two other things. We recently had, last year, a development on Route 17 that is going to add a lot of children to the school division. That was a split vote of our board. I voted against it because of that primary reason and because of traffic on Route 17. That got 4 votes. That's all it takes on any board is 4 votes to make that happen. So you have to realize that not everybody is contributing to additional students in the school division. Those board members made that decision for whatever reason, and I'm not disparaging them, but I'm just saying rezonings like that cost us additional children. We have so many by right subdivisions. That is what is contributing to our growth. Our Board of Supervisors and the previous 2 boards have not approved any major rezonings in this county. You look at Embry Mill, that was approved many years ago. Leland Station was in 1995. Those 780 homes just got completed in the last 2 years. And Embry Mill was 1980. So what's contributed to the growth is all the by right subdivisions. The board, our Board of Supervisors, approved last March, I believe it was. Is that right, Crystal?
Oh, the downzoning?
Yes. That was a 4-3
yeah.
vote, and we moved from 1 house per 3 acres to 1 house per 6. Some of us wanted to move from 1 house to 10 acres, but we didn't have 4 votes for it. Had our previous boards done this years ago, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. But it doesn't matter now. We're here where we are. So now we need to go forward. I will tell you, this is my opinion. I'm on a school infrastructure committee as an appointee with all superintendents from the state. Any money that goes to that the state of Virginia comes up with, I don't think our locality is going to see a whole lot of that money. Anybody in the room agree with me? No, we're not. We are not going to qualify. When you look at the needs in this Commonwealth of old schools, every single one of our schools look like they're brand new. Okay? Well, maybe not. I looked at Dr. Taylor. But I'm telling you, the needs in the Commonwealth are much greater than what we see here in Stafford County. So in my mind, we're not going to see any of that money. If we're going to do, regardless of the order right now, and I understand what you're saying, whether it's high school or elementary school 18, Hartwood, then 19, or whatever the order may be that we all decide on jointly, we are going to have to do a bond issue. We're going to have to do that. So, and it's all about debt service capacity. Are we going into a recession? We're already in one. The question is it going to continue, and is it going to deepen? We are very fortunate. We're in an area where we have a lot of federal government employees, and we are very insulated compared to many other areas of the nation when it comes to recessions. Will that be the case this time? Who knows? So I do want to also remind everybody that we do have, and Tanisha mentioned this a little bit, we have 5,000 units right now that have been approved in Stafford County, but that have not been platted. So when Tanisha asked the question of Lionel, are those included here? Not all of them will get built. We have some that have been sitting there for 30 years. So, but those are going to come into the mix too, and it's going to make those numbers worse. So anyway, that's kind of what I wanted to share with everybody. And again, I appreciate everybody's time, and we can get this done together if we're willing to work at it and work hard.
Thanks. Okay, so I'll go last, because I haven't had an opportunity to really speak. I just want to echo a little bit of what Ms. Baumke said regarding the development aspect of things. I think the community sometimes thinks that we just willy-nilly approve all these subdivisions. They see a house being built and they just assume that the Board of Supervisors approved it. I can tell you my time on the board, I've never voted for a rezoning. My time on the Planning Commission, never voted for a single rezoning. But sometimes they pass. I think since I've been on this board, we've only passed one rezoning, one major rezoning in that time. And then, of course, downtown Stafford passed. I do think that that will have impact on school capacity and would love to see us undo that, but that's another conversation for another day. But I say all of that because this is where we really need your help, and this is where we can work together. I know recently, because Maureen gave me the information, shared with me that VSBA has added to their policy priorities this year, amending the General Assembly laws regarding proffers and development for education. Because right now we have been strong-armed and development does not pay for itself when it comes to education. And finally, the VSBA, which probably has a lobbying power very similar to the Builders Association, can go out there and try to inflict that change. And that's what we need. We need the schools, we need your help from an educational perspective to be able to go to the General Assembly and change these pieces of legislation, because for growing communities like Stafford, it is negatively impacting us and we can't do anything about it. And the answer can't be that we quadruple people's taxes, because when we look at the $1.5 billion CIP cost, when we had Andrea do those numbers, like if you pay $3,000 on your personal property taxes, you'll pay $9,000. So that is very complicated. Like, we can't do that to people. So that's where we need to be able to work with you guys and figure out what is a common sense solution to accomplishing these common goals and needs. And that is one area that we can work together. The other one is on cost to compete. We just had our legislative update of our legislative priorities that our board pushes through with the General Assembly every year. Sometimes we're successful, sometimes we're not. And we have had COCA on there every single year. For the first time ever, the schools have joined us in pushing forward for that legislation. And I appreciate Dr. Taylor's relationship that you are trying to have with the administration, with the Youngkin administration, because I think it's going to be very, very important in order to prioritize Stafford County. They want to compare us as Northern Virginia and everything else, including law enforcement and everything else, except for when it comes to education. And that is something that we can get loud about and we can go there and push back on. And that is where we'll have the most beneficial changes in being able to implement and build these schools, because raising taxes to the tune of, triple what they pay it's not reasonable, it's not logical. We can't do that. So we have to find these other areas where we can work together and get things done, because we all want to build new schools. It's just a matter of how we do it. So I think those all need to be options on the table, and we need to have really solid tactics and measures on how we're going to be able to do that. So I will conclude, and then I'll give you one more opportunity, but I'm going to defer back to the chair of the school board.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make a point of clarification since the mainline rezoning was brought up, and that was something that I know personally I was mulled over very carefully for a while. In regards to that vote, that development, they did come back and give an additional $1 million specifically for the schools, on top of what they originally offered. And I also requested that it would be written in that would not change when the redistricting happened with the schools, so that we didn't get impacted that way. It would go where we understood it would be going. And that actually put them over the per pupil expenditure for the students for the rezoning portion and also for the by right portion. So they paid more than enough. The problem, I think, also is that we do need to make some adjustments with taxes, because they pay the per pupil expenditure. We can't say pay more. That's what we pay for our students. So if we're only paying so much per student, that's the calculation for what developers look at that say this is their per pupil expenditure. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Supervisor Young.
Real quick, my comment was, when we talk about Supervisor Baumke mentioned the by right developments, and a lot of them. I remember when I just started on the Board of Supervisors, I took a ride out there in Hartwood, and there were so many. So we just need to ensure that when we do rebuild Hartwood, that we take into considerations not only the ones that are already built, but the ones that are coming down the pipe. And so just 400 seats alone is not going to do it. We just need to make sure that it's bigger than that. Yeah. And then I need a question. There's a question for Mr. Fulmer in terms of bond. I don't know how it works, and you mentioned the bond. I was thinking about the bond being for every area versus having it just a general bond. I think constituents appreciate the fact that we as supervisors are thinking about our district also in terms of, say, for example, if there's a firehouse that is missing or needing, or if there's a school is needing, that we put that together. And I think that that likely vote will happen if they know that, oh yes, we need a fire station, and oh yes, we need a school here, instead of just putting two schools on one bond, and then somebody's voting in Conway knows, yes, the school is coming down in the south, but then somebody up in Hartwood will say, no, we are not getting it, so we're not voting for it. So I'm just thinking that something like that, is that possible? And
So
Dr. Taylor, you look like you
Chris
get ready.
actually passed this one to me. There's lots of different ways to finance these projects. You could definitely explore the public-private partnership option as a viable solution for some financing. You could do a just general GO bond that we're doing for the high school project. That's a viable option as a standalone bond. You could be part of the VPSA pool and join one of the pooled bonds as well as a standalone project or group of projects, or you could go out to referendum and have a much larger bond that would also be a general issue bond that would go out as a GO bond, but have a lot more projects. And to that point, you'd probably want to select some projects within that bond that had some geographic diversity that would touch different parts of the county, if you wanted to make sure that that bond got enough attention and enough support from different parts, so that the voters see themselves in that bond.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Who did you have a question, Mr. English?
Short term, what we got? What about, have y'all looked at year-round schools? Is that an option? Because I think that would help as far as maybe with some capacity. Is that something that you've looked at?
Sure, we have. The juice isn't worth the squeeze on that, and I would say I appreciate you're bringing that up, because it's a great opportunity to talk that it also has an additional cost. So it's about 20% more per site to operate a floating year-round school. The other rub, of course, is like, who wants to have that conversation with the parents to say, your kids are off in the fall, or your kids are off from January to March, and then have to arrange childcare at some other juncture? The kids have to go somewhere.
But don't there are other schools that do the year-round? I've heard Prince William did it, and they loved it, and I don't know why they went out. But I've had this conversation with you before, and you said, oh, yeah, you get some pushback, but once it gets started, they love it.
Well, there are some places that do love it and do appreciate it, but you have other parts of the marketplace that have to catch up with that to support it, like your child care community, summer camps, and that sort of thing, that then have to shift to a different model altogether to float along with you. If we were a bigger school system, that might be a more viable option, but again, some of this is such a radical shift for families that it's not something that you could flip a switch and say, well, I guess next year we're going to do X, and say, okay, all first graders, you all are going to be home from September to December, and everybody else is going to be going to school during different months. That there is some cost efficiency there, but it still costs more to do that as well.
So
it's
you're
not
telling
an easy solution.
So you're telling me that the schools that are doing it right now, that are doing it, it's costing them money to do year-round?
It does cost them more. It's about 20% more, because
I wonder why they do that.
Because because there is some cost savings in terms of your per pupil spend, but it's not free. It's not a net cost savings difference. Yeah. So, you do have teachers that are working a different calendar. You have utilities that are running at a different time. Cleaning your facilities is also a bit of a challenge and maintenance. So it's an option. It's maybe not our most attractive option.
Dr. Taylor, did Prince William operate their year-round schools for learning loss or for capacity?
They did it for learning loss, and it was also a different model. They didn't shift theirs so that they could fit more students in. They took the same students that they had, and they stretched their year out into 45-day periods of time with 2-week intersessions in between, some of the students attended for the intersession, some of them didn't, but it was the same group of students. They didn't add more students in.
I would just also like to say that during our town halls, we broached this subject with many parents, and they were adamantly opposed to it because it might put their children in different grade levels on different schedules. And they also were opposed to expanding virtual learning options because they want their kids in school. We've had many of these conversations. It was very beneficial in the town halls because we did get a lot of feedback about these proposals.
Well, when you did the town halls, we really weren't invited until we knew about them, so that's why I'm asking the
Well,
question. We
I'd,
weren't.
I'd like to get back to the members. I know Ms.
Yes.
Venuccia has someone else that wants to speak, and then give our board a very brief opportunity because technically we have about 5 minutes left in our
Perfect.
our
So,
meeting.
Miss Allen, you can go, and then we'll wrap it. We'll be done on our side, and then we'll turn it back over to
Thank
Chairman
you,
Healy.
Madam Chairwoman. I can't just say one. One of the things I just want to quickly point out before I ask a final question is, this country also, I want to bear in mind that we do have a housing crisis. And so it shouldn't be a one or all as an option. We need to bear that in mind as we make decisions of, yes, we need to grasp and get a hold of our growth, but at the same time, there's an affordability issue and there's a housing crisis shortage. So I won't pontificate anymore on that. But my final point would be, this is a productive meeting. We've all said our piece, and you guys will say your piece again before we wrap up. But I'm a next step. What are we going to do? Right? We've had this conversation. We've had individual conversations. Our teams have had our meeting. Our staff have had conversations. I want to know going forward because our parents want to know, and the community want to know, what is the next step? Right? High School 6 is already in the pipe. We've already voted on stuff as it relates to that. But as it relates to your capital improvement projects, what is it that you need from us next so that we can get to some type of consensus in a timely manner that if we were to go to a referendum, as our board has discussed, we have to do it in a way where, if I'm not mistaken, our county attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, we have to give staff enough time to review that so we can get it on the ballot for next year's election. And so for right now for us, as we say today in Stroke class, time is brain, time is students, right? So we kind of have to have a next step approach as we leave this meeting. Like, I don't want us to just meet, had great dinner, we shared our piece. What are we doing next? What is our tangible objectives that we can let parents know that they can track and say, what are the boards doing so that come next November, I can expect to see this progress that's measurable.
Thank you, Mrs. Allen. We recommend, and the school board, and as their superintendent, recommend that the Board of Supervisors consider elementary 18 and elementary 19 for financing in fiscal 24. So this would be for your upcoming CIP cycle, so that we can break ground this summer and that we can open those schools in the summer of 26 so that students can attend in the fall of 26. And that we also further recommend that you consider the other projects on the CIP that was sent to you in October for some of your longer term financing, such as a bond referendum. That's our ask.
And that's basically our purpose in meeting with you today, is to ask you to go back to the drawing board for that CIP and consider, our priorities and our recommendations. But we would have to move very quickly if we're going to be able to start for next year. But if you want any more specifics, we can, have Dr. Taylor work with your administrator, on that as well. Dr. Chase, did you want to say something?
No, Ms. Sigmund took care of it. Thank you,
Okay,
Ms.
anybody
Sigmund.
else on our board? All right, well, Ms. Halstead.
I'm sorry, Meg just flagged me down, but I don't know.
Well, let me get through us, because we'll let you do it on your time, because I'm trying to get you out of here, because I know you have a meeting. But Ms. Halstead, did you have any final comments you wanted to make?
Just one comment, and that was, I was listening to Ms. Allen talk, and I just wanted to say thank you for sort of identifying the delicate balance between fighting for your district and fighting for the whole county, and not allowing the sort of personal people to cloud your judgment. It is not a task. And there are many times where I found myself looking at the penny-wise, pound-foolish analogy. And that is why I landed on the elementary 18 and 19 as a priority with my fellow board members, because we're, it is really, really, really easy to say that Hartwood needs a new building, but when we look at the other schools in the county as a sum total, with Berry Farm and Conway and those guys, it's really 18 and 19 that will help us spend smarter. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Halstead. I'm going to take 1 minute, and then we'll be done, and you can go on as long as you want because we're on your clock. I want to thank everyone who participated here. I have to say this is one, if not the best meeting that I've ever been involved in with the Board of Supervisors. I feel that we both listen to each other, that we recognize, our different responsibilities and our different lenses, as our Dr. Chase would say, on how we're looking at things. You all have a much wider scope of responsibility. We're the advocates for the schools. You're for the whole county. But we're a very important element of your responsibility. And it is so encouraging to know that you're listening to us and taking this into consideration. So thank you. Also want to say, if there's any other questions that come up, I know we have some questions. Dr. Taylor will take care of getting that to your county administrator. If there's anything else that comes up, please don't hesitate to send them to us. I'll let Ms. Vanouche tell you how she wants that to be communicated, but we're always there to respond. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to a speedy response to our request. If you want us to come to your meeting either next month or in December to further explain or add or anything you need, just let us know. We are available. But I think you heard our request loud and clear. We want to build elementary school 18 and elementary school 19 pretty much immediately, and quickly followed by the rebuild of Hartwood and Drew and Rising Star. So we'll discuss that for another day. And according to my clock, we're 2 minutes over, but that's pretty darn good.
That is pretty good
for a meeting of this size. Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Vanouche.
Thank you so much, Chairman Heerly. I'm going to defer to my colleague, Supervisor Baumke, for a quick question, and then I'll close it out.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Dr. Taylor, is moving to the next step, do you have land for 18 and 19 already secured?
Already secured, no, but we've initiated the process to secure one piece of property, and we have other pieces of property that we are looking for contemplation. We have already initiated the process for requesting proposals from architects for a prototype design of an elementary school, and should have a design in place and ready to go by summer, and the ability to break ground this summer if we had the financing.
All right, Supervisor Gary, and then we're really done.
Yes, very quickly. I just wanted to clarify, because Supervisor English had mentioned not being contacted about the town halls. I know we have a very good relationship, but personally I did know I was invited. I did attend, and I appreciated doing that and hearing from the community. Thank you.
And I would say, I appreciated the town halls. I think the language probably was a little bit strong and maybe a little accusatory, which rubbed a few people the wrong way initially. I went to the town hall in my district. I think things like that in the future would come off a lot more powerfully for our community if we did them together. Like, just being invited is one part, but to be able to stand up there arm in arm with Patricia in my district and be able to say, here's what is going on, here's our specific issues, here's your issues. I would really like to see us working together versus just, you guys having them and shaping the messaging, because there were several things that were said in mine that I have a very different perspective on as a supervisor. So just in the future, we're going to have to wrap it up because we have to leave for our 7 o'clock meeting. But we heard your request loud and clear. Mr. Vosberg, if anybody has any additional questions on my side, please send them to Randy. We are not supposed to send a bunch of random questions to the school staff. Please direct all of your communication to Mr. Vosberg so that he can compile it all, provide it to the entire board, and then move forward. I think as we continue through our next CIP meetings, I think showing the board what their request looks like in writing and the cost estimates is where we need to go. We need to see what that looks like so we can be really real about what that impact is on the tax rate and what that looks like. So I'll close it there and just want to thank everybody again so much for your time.
And we do have a package This is sort of like a party favor. This is the PowerPoint that you did not sit through, but it's very informative, and we wanted you to have that information, so take it with you. Thank you all.
My colleagues, let's go to the car. No chit-chatting, you little rabbits. Let's